Now that we have a basic understanding of some of the definitions for survey design, let's talk about sampling design. Sampling design refers to the method used to choose a sample from the population. And as we mentioned before, we want to choose a good sample that represents the entire population accurately. So let's go on. A simple random sample, also called an SRS, and you can read what it says here. Basically what it is every person has the same chance of being chosen, or every individual actually, and every set of individuals has the same chance of being chosen. That's it in a nutshell. You might want to pause this so you can look at some of the examples, and then we'll talk a little bit about what it means. Okay, so first of all, what do it mean? Every individual has the same chance of being selected. And the example we use here is that we put people's names in a hat and select their names for a hat. That means each person has the same chance of being selected. There's no bias, there's no favoritism, if you will, towards one person or another. It also means that every group, in this case of 50 people, has the same chance of being chosen. So it's possible for all 50 students, as an example, to be seniors, and it's still to be an SRS. This is very important for us to understand. Just because the sample that you randomly pick doesn't look like what you think it does, in fact, it could be totally random and just not look like what you might think random looks like. Next thing is the stratified random sample. And here population is divided into homogeneous groups. Homogeneous, that means looks the same. So a homogeneous group is a group of people or individuals that look the same. Once you've broken the individuals up into groups, then you take an SRS from each strata. And you'll see a lot of this with, say, medical sampling, where they stratify people by age, by gender, maybe by health condition. That way they can compare the outlooks, different things. So I have a couple examples for you here. And my examples I gave are by gender or age bracket. So I'll pause for a second if you want to write that down. Next up is sampling is a systematic random sample. And what you do is it says you select a sample by following a systematic approach. And I have an example coming up for you. It says you're going to want to randomly select where you begin. My systematic sample here is you pick every third person with a red shirt. I guess this example would have been better if I would have started with, hey, starting with the fifth red person that walks by with a red shirt. Every third person after that will choose. So this is a systematic random sample. An advantage to something like this is it's very easy to do. There could be some disadvantages to this, such as maybe if you're looking for people with red shirts, maybe a whole big group of people with red shirts would come by as part of some type of family reunion or other such thing, and it could make things more difficult to figure out. Cluster sample. So you pick a location randomly, and you sample everybody that's there. You sample all the individuals in one area. And you can see here it says based upon location. So I'll give you an example here in a second. My cluster here will survey everyone between 35th Street East, between Avenue S and R. And that's a cluster because we're going to sample everybody in that area. The good thing about this is it's not as expensive. If I'm already in the area, I don't have to drive from person to person across town. I'm already in the area, I can survey all the people. The disadvantage is I might not have as much variation as I would, say, with a random sample. Next type of sampling is convenience sample. And this asks people who are easy to talk to. And this is it says bias. It should say very biased. This is very biased. Convenience sampling is not the best way to sample people. In fact, it's one of the poorer ways to sample people. And I have an example for you here. My example is sample everyone you encounter at a trip to the mall. Again, the thing with this is it's easy. You're at the mall, you'll talk to people. The downside is you only talk to those group of people who choose to go to the mall. If people are not going to the mall, you're not going to end up surveying them. And that could be a problem because you could miss out on some information. The last type of sampling we will go over is a multi-stage sample. This might be where you start off by stratifying your sample, or maybe you start off with rather a cluster, and then inside that cluster you stratify people, and then you get an SRS out of each strata. So that way we can use multiple approaches to get the sample we need. So I'm going to talk about one quick word, and then I'll close out this video, and the next video we'll talk about different types of biases and different types of responses. So the last thing we're going to talk about is a random digit table. I handed these out the first week of school, and just so you know, each entry is equally likely to be any of the 10 digits. And the 10 digits are what we use to form numbers. Digits are 0 through 9. They're independent of each other. That means one number does not influence the outcome of another number. Okay, so the next video will cover bias and type of bias.